Hello, everybody, and welcome to your channel. And I am Carl Tucker. I am the host of Tucker Talk TV, and I've got a very interesting young man here with us today. His name is Ethan Wallin, and he's going to give us a perspective on pretty much everything. I like to hear a young person's perspective on things, political things, whatever the conversation comes to is what we're going to talk about. So you guys more than welcome to listen in. Hey, hit that like, share, and that bell button so you'll be notified every time I load up a new video, and I greatly appreciate you supporting the channel by doing so. So Ethan, tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Well, for one, thanks for having me. I'm Ethan. Your son is my stepdad. Lafayette graduated from Lafayette. Pretty average Joe. You know, I work at that McDonald's over there on Main Street, and weekend barista there. Been working there 2 years. You know, it's a tough job there. You know.
Well, so I wanted Ethan to come on the channel because we get into these deep, long talks, and he's got an interesting perspective on different things, and he don't agree with me on a lot of things, and I'm glad that he don't, but because that would make for pretty dull family reunions, wouldn't it?
It sure would.
So anyway, so tell me, what's it been like since you got out of high school and you're taking on this job? And
well, right. So I guess you can say I'm taking a year off. I'm just going to be honest. I haven't done too much with myself, a little less than what my folks probably would like me to have done. But I've just kind of been chilling around. Honestly, I've been chilling around my parents' house for kind of still figuring out what I want to do with myself, you know. For a while, there's some different things I wanted to do. I wanted to do the field of like corporate security or executive protection. I wanted to do that. I wanted to maybe truck drive, and maybe wanted to, just backpack and be a bum. But
yeah, I'm trying to talk you out of the truck driving stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I try to talk him out of that. But have you thought about going to college or anything?
Well, college ain't free, and in order for it to be free, you have to have done pretty good in school. And I just didn't do well in school. I was a pretty average student. There were times where I went to teachers and begged them to make a 69, a 70, just so I'd get, just so I could graduate, just to go to the next grade, And, I didn't really apply for scholarships. I didn't apply for any colleges my senior year. I didn't take the I didn't take the ASVAB my senior year. And it's just, I rejected school for a while, and I'm regretting it a lot. But again, college ain't free, and I just don't have the grades to make it free,
Well, and you've heard me say this before, don't confuse intelligence with education.
Yeah.
Don't, and there's several people that have really, Glenn Beck is one of them, that has very well established themselves and didn't go to college.
Yeah.
And Charlie Kirk is another one. So I would rather for somebody to be well-read, intelligence, than to have a diploma to stick on their wall and say, well, I went 4 years here and still be be lost.
There's kind of the stereotype of the dude that makes having a master's degree his whole personality.
Right. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was watching... what was it, yesterday? And somebody was talking about, this lady was talking about MAGA Republicans.
Yeah.
And of course, she was saying MAGA Republicans don't have college costs because they didn't go to college. I went to college, and I have a $100,000 loan I've got to pay back, or $200,000 loan I got to pay back.
It's easy for them to be against student loans if they don't have any.
Well, that's what
claim,
she was saying, but she was doing it in a derogative manner. In other words, she was putting down people that didn't go to college.
Yeah.
And I hate to tell people, but the majority of people in the United States don't go to college.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, if you go out and let's say you learn a trade, and I always use the trade as a plumber or electrician.
Yeah.
Those guys are making a killing. I know guys that's making well over 100,000 a year, and they have their own HVAC company.
Well, but I mean, that's still trade school, though. I mean, trade school's not free either.
Well, no, but like HVAC guys, they can go to trade school. Don't necessarily have to.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think I may be wrong, but they can become accredited by on-the-job training.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, on-the-job training is, I think I may be wrong. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail or hate comments if I'm wrong on this, but I think it's 2 years of on-the-job training that they have to be certified themselves to have their own companies. These guys are making a killing, and you know what? They don't have that big education loan that they have to pay back, and they're just making a killing. There's Pell grants. There's all kind of grants that you can get, and I know that Charlie Kirk is kind of the exception to the rule in the field that he's in, and but you know, he's well read. He goes and debates college students and just demolishes them.
But not very well-read college students, I don't think.
Well, but they're paying for that education.
And right, so there's the irony is that he's owning the supposedly educated people is supposed to be the irony.
Right. And they paid all this money, and yet he can go there and he asks them certain questions like, you know, what economist are you listening to, or what economist do you read? Right. And they're like, I don't know, because it's kind of like they only know what they're being taught. And what they're being taught, unfortunately, since the 1960s, liberals have, you know, and let me back up. I admire them for what they've done, because they've been playing the long game and we've been playing the short game. The long game is, since the 1960s, the liberals have infiltrated, or become college professors. And so since the 1960s, the colleges have been inundated with liberal professors. And so what are they doing? They're turning out, in many cases, liberal students who come to them as these open-minded students, could be conservative, could be liberal, could be whatever, and they get, I don't want to say brainwashed, but inundated with this liberal type education. So they start viewing the world through this liberal glass.
Well, what do you think this lens teaches?
Excuse me?
What do you think the lens teaches? Like what are they teaching in the universities that make them inherently liberal?
Well, in other words, you know, since the 60s, the liberal thought is anti-government, and but then somehow it has kind of changed, where in the 60s where it's anti-government, Vietnam War, and now it's we want bigger government. We want the government to be able to take care of us. We want the government to do everything. Right. And so it's kind of an anti-government thing, but at the same time, we want the government to pay for our education. We want the government to do this. Whereas the average Republican, and I'm not talking about just MAGA Republicans, I'm talking about the average Republicans, we want the government to stay out of our business. Right. We want to, the average Republican is really involved in capitalism. Right. You know, why shouldn't I be able to keep my money that I've worked hard to earn? You see what I mean? And when you look at the liberal thought process, and I'm going to use the old comparison they use with the pencil factory. You know.
Yes.
Okay. The pencil factory. If I'm being the owner of that factory and I'm taking all the risk,
you provide the wood, the paint, the rubber.
I provide all of that. You provide your labor. Right. I pay you for your labor, but I'm going to reap the benefits of the investment I've made. Right. Okay. Whereas the liberal mind thought is, no. I get to have some of your money also.
Right, right.
Even though I'm just putting in the labor, we should all evenly divide this money, and that's in a utopian world. I think that would be
Right.
that's ideal thinking, but we live in reality,
Right.
and the reality is that there's not a single average, let's say average Joe or poor person that's ever given me a job, ever. Who has given me the job?
A rich guy, yeah.
A rich guy that owns a company, and I'll go to work for that company. So I think the liberal mind thought in the colleges today is anti-capitalism.
So I don't think that either side is as anti-government as they say they are. I don't think that. I don't find the Republicans to be small government at all. So either side will say, okay, we do want the government to do this, but we don't want it to do this, and that's all that politics really is what are we okay or what are we not okay with the government doing. And like the Republicans, I mean, it's hard, I guess, to be a Republican and say that you're for small government, and like you have this newfound kind of opposition to gay marriage. So like, I don't think that you can say that we need to go after gay marriage because it's on religious grounds, but then in the same breath say that we're small government. And I don't think that's not every Republican, of course not.
Right.
But the same goes for the Democrats and the left. And in order for the government to do anything, you need there to be more government, more money. So I don't.
Well, here's the thing, and this goes for me and Republicans that I know.
Right,
Okay?
right.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me about gay marriage. It really doesn't.
Right.
But if somebody wants to be married to someone of the same sex, that's none of my business.
But should they get the legal protection of regular marriage?
Well, here's what I was going to say. The ceremony of marriage is totally and specifically comes from the Jewish faith.
Right.
And from the Jewish faith to the Christian faith, right? The earliest known record of a marriage ceremony or marriage contract comes from the Jewish faith. Now, could somebody be legally married? Two women, two men, or whatever, can be legally married? Yes, I think so. But let's set the ceremony. You can't say that I don't believe in biblical things and then do a biblical ceremony.
Okay.
You see what I mean? And so I think any pastor that performs a homosexual marriage is not a man of the word.
Okay.
So do they deserve the legal protections as far as the government goes? Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a debate in Washington that many are saying no.
Well, that's where I don't know. I have my opinion about party politics, okay? And just because the party goes this way doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And the right thing to do, because we always talking about the separation of government and
Church and state, yeah.
Church and state. So let's do that. I'm totally for that.
Right.
Okay. So the idea that the only thing I have an issue with is homosexual couples using a religious ceremony to do their vows. When I don't care if they go to the JP, Justice of the Peace. I don't care. If they have, I believe they should have the same protections as anybody else. I have an issue with them using the religious ceremony.
Right.
So that's why I say anybody. I remember a pastor that I had, Brother Melvin Bridges, and he was pastor of our church for 58 years, and I might add, there was a known homosexual couple in the congregation when he
Wow.
said this.
Really?
Yeah, had been coming there for many years, and you know what? They were welcomed in with open arms, and that's the way every church should be, because although I believe that the homosexual lifestyle is a sin,
Right.
I do believe that. It is not up to me to
Or the role of government at all.
no,
Right.
no. I can lovingly come to somebody and say, look, this is the lifestyle. This is what the word says about your lifestyle.
Right.
Now, homosexual sin is no worse than my sin.
Right.
Okay? Because sin is sin. But it's where it kind of crosses the boundary is that there's many that's living the homosexual lifestyle that's going to try to convince you that it's not a sin. Okay? So when I can look in the Bible, and the Bible is the main thing we have to reference the Word of God. Now, there's a lot of people that's going to say, no, it's been translated, it's been this and this and that. If you look at the text, the general text in the especially the first 5 books of the Bible, and you compare them to text from 1,000 years ago, you're going to see that it's almost word for word, because there was such great care in actually writing that text down and translating it. Okay, so I don't buy into the Bible has been translated into this and this and that. When I talk about the King James Version, now there are other versions of the Bible that's the Living Bible and things like that. I've seen some scripture where they kind of get off on it, but in general, it's pretty accurate, I should say. But now, getting back to the idea of homosexuality.
Let me ask you, can you secularly oppose gay marriage?
I don't think it's my place. You talk about without.
Yes, sure.
I understand.
And that's just one of the examples I used of the small government thing. Republicans are for small government, but then in the same breath, we should ban X, Y, Z.
Secularly, I don't think you have the right to.
Right.
You know, let's take biblical things and set it over to the side.
Right.
Now we're just talking government and legally.
Yes.
Right. In the United States, you don't have the right to. And
Right.
Because every United States citizen has the Bill of Rights.
Right.
Has the Constitution. It doesn't matter if you're homosexual, and we're talking about strictly government and laws.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're homosexual, straight, devil worshiper, Christian, Muslim, sixth, or what do they call it, sixth?
Siths.
Siths.
Sikh, yeah.
That reminds me of a video I saw the other day. I'll tell you about it. But according to the Constitution, everybody has equal rights.
Right.
Now, and homosexuals have equal rights. Transgender people have equal rights.
Right.
Non-binary people have equal rights. Straight people have equal. We all have equal rights, and that should be something that we fight hard to keep. But when it comes to the government, homosexuality, government shouldn't be in your bedroom.
Right.
Doesn't matter. That's my answer.
Yeah. Well, you kind of said about how the people might support it, but the government doesn't. You know, for years, Republican voters have overwhelmingly supported marijuana legalization, but the government, Republican legislators haven't, moved on it.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of drawing that parallel there.
Okay. Well, that come along in what, the 1940s, 1950s, when the government was trying to make this list of drugs and stuff that maybe we should outlaw.
Right.
Cocaine, for instance. At the turn of the century, if you look at cocaine, for example, it was literally in Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
It was being not by prescription, but being freely given to people by doctors, drugstores, and stuff. as it was this great healing thing.
Right.
And
right.
because nobody really understood the dangers of cocaine. So, so the government makes out this list of drugs. This is not good. This is not good. And I think it was almost as an afterthought that marijuana was put on there. And because I look at this, should marijuana be legalized? I'm against legalizing it. And I'll tell you why.
But how is that small government?
Well, it is in the sense, well, it's not a small government. It's just.
But it's not a small government policy. It's the government saying, hey, you can't smoke that.
Right. Well, the government also says, hey, you can't get a tattoo until you're 18 years old.
Right.
Because it's about responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's about people being responsible for their own health. I believe everybody should be responsible for their own health. But when it comes to certain things, it should be at least regulated. Like alcohol is, in a sense, regulated.
Right.
You can't buy alcohol unless you're 21 years old.
I think the individual is more suited to make their own health choices than the government is to make those choices for them.
At what limit do you put on that? What's the minimum age?
Of what?
Somebody can legally smoke marijuana.
I mean, you can just say 18 or 21 for the sake of the alcohol age is already 21.
Okay.
So is the tobacco age.
Well,
because you don't want it is proven by studies, by research that underage marijuana usage is harmful for the brain.
Right. So is it okay for, let's say, a private in the Army to be smoking marijuana?
Is it okay morally?
No.
Yeah.
Should it be okay legally?
In my opinion, yes.
Really?
Yes.
Because even though, in other words, you want to treat marijuana like cigarettes, right?
Well, I mean, the law around cigarettes is you got to be 21 for them. I think it should
21.
It should be
Okay.
18 or I think if you're young, if you're old enough to work, you're old enough to smoke and drink. I think.
But here's the problem you run into. Cigarettes is not a mind-altering thing. It's not going to affect your ability to drive. It's not going to affect your ability to run
Speak,
machinery.
walk, yeah.
Marijuana, however, does.
And so does alcohol.
And so does alcohol. But you
Yeah.
can't drink alcohol at work, so you can't.
Right,
you shouldn't
right.
be able to smoke marijuana at work.
Right.
You understand? You
Well,
understand what I'm getting at?
Well, but after hours, you should. I mean, if you're sweating and bleeding and working, I think you should.
Yeah, but
you should be able to.
who makes that law? How do they regulate that law? Say like an airline pilot.
Right.
Let's look at an airline pilot. Airline pilots, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but they have to be sober at least 8 hours, I think, prior to any flight. So should they be doing the same thing with marijuana? Because it is mind altering.
You should not smoke marijuana and drive a plane. No.
Right.
Right.
So, but in his free time,
He should be able to. Yes.
Okay. At what point does he have to cut it off? How many hours prior to that? Because the half-life of other words, I'm not exactly sure what the half-life of marijuana
To come
is.
down.
To come down.
But you can
completely
basically sleep it off.
yeah, but is it going to be 8 hours? Is it going to be 6 hours? And how's that going to be regulated?
Right.
You see what I mean? They can give you a breath test for alcohol, which is not very invasive, but they can't give you a breath test that I know of now
Right.
for marijuana.
Or how to test the level and the.
They have to give you a urine test or a blood test.
Right.
Okay, so now you're getting into personal space, so to speak, and so how do you regulate that? So that becomes a problem. That becomes a problem as far as marijuana is concerned. Very easy to do a breath test for alcohol. If a trooper, if a state patrol pulls you over and you smoked up a bunch of weed You know,
Right.
I think the only thing, and I may be wrong, and I hope if I am wrong, I hope somebody in the comments lets me know. But I don't think they can do a breath test for marijuana.
No. But they can get you for a marijuana DUI. People get marijuana DUIs.
They do that. But what if I say no? You can't take my urine.
Right.
You can't test my urine. So there's laws. There would have to be laws involved, much like here in the state of Georgia with alcohol. See, you can get pulled over. You can refuse a breath test. You can refuse it. In Georgia, if you refuse a breath test, they can take your license for a year.
Yeah, implied consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for them if you refuse a blood test, like if you go to the hospital, maybe you've been in a wreck, you're unconscious, and the officers investigating the crash goes to the hospital and says, we need a blood test for alcohol or whatever drugs. They have to go get a warrant. So there's no freely getting that stuff unless you give them permission. If you give them permission, then all bets are off. So how does these how do these companies, or how does the government make these laws and then regulate these things?
Well, I mean, my answer would be that they shouldn't. I mean, I would take the very radical position that marijuana, I mean, and it's hard to make this argument for meth and heroin, but you can, but that it's not the place of the government to point at you and tell you, hey, you can't inject, snort, that, you can't be high on it and drive on the road, because then that puts you out of danger to others. But we shouldn't arrest you because we found you walking in the street with a little bag of Coke in your pocket. I do think that it is the personal right of the individual to consume whatever they want without the government telling them that they can't.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem with that.
But that's arguing on principle rather than reality.
Yeah, the reality of it is if you're walking around and you've got this large amount of whatever drug on you, the presumption is that you've got it to sell it. And,
right.
Who you're selling it to? You selling it to a 10-year-old?
Right. Well, so we can at least say that personal amounts of drugs should be decriminalized. I think that personal amounts of
in many states they already are.
Right.
I mean, but that's the states going in the. For example, marijuana, Colorado, I think California, you're allowed to have so much marijuana and stuff.
Right.
I think in Georgia you can have medical marijuana. I think. I'm sure
down here in Georgia, somebody that does smoke weed wouldn't even think about riding around with a bowl, like a glass bowl.
Right.
But when I went to New York,
I don't know, man. I've seen some dumb rednecks, man.
Right. Well, yeah, but normally you wouldn't think about doing that, especially down here in Georgia. But when I went up there in New York, my buddy's dad rides around with a bowl, and it's like this guy burns joints like they're cigarettes, and it's unreal.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is up there,
Yeah, but see, again, you're talking about a mind-altering drug.
It is.
Scientifically proven to be.
Yeah.
So this is why that has to be regulated, right, because your reaction times are slowed. Your attention can be diverted very easily.
Right.
So again, just like I set alcohol for the example, if we're going to make marijuana legal, it should be under the guidelines under the regulation like alcohol is. And to an extent like cigarettes is as far as the companies go. But it should be taxed by the government, because the government's going to be setting forth all these new regulations, all these new laws that have to be enforced.
Right.
To enforce a law, it takes money.
It's not free, yeah.
Right. And so this thing about you take companies like Philip Morris, for example. You know what? I believe that they are so much setting on ready for marijuana to be
Yeah.
legalized nationwide. I don't know for sure, but I think Trump is kind of
He's
in
talking.
support
He's
of that.
talking about rescheduling it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and so as far as the controlled substances goes, I think marijuana, which is kind of put on the list, is kind of
Right.
the afterthought. There was a lot of PR that was going on at the time. Oh, this makes you manic. This makes you crazy, and people kind of fell into the belief of that. And but we know now that that's not true. But if they make it legalized, it has to be regulated,
Right.
just for the safety of the public.
Right. But I mean, but if you can sit at home and drink, I think you should be able to sit at home and smoke.
Sure,
But,
sure.
But that's playing on like the broader idea that Republicans are against gay marriage, they're against marijuana. So how can you be against those things, but then also be small government? Now the liberals and the Democrats certainly aren't for small government. They want more government and plenty of it. But I just don't see how the Republican Party, that's one of their things on their platform that they're against, and I just don't see how that.
Well, see, like one of the purposes of the government is to protect the citizenship.
Right.
They provide a military to protect me. They provide laws that help to protect me.
But really, you provide it though.
Well, yeah.
Right.
But I provide it through my taxes
Right.
to the government. But there's some things that's just common sense,
Yeah.
Do we want somebody out on the road driving that's drunk? Do we want a pilot that's flying
And I didn't know that they didn't really start coming out with DUI laws until the 80s. I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah. Prior to the 80s, it was a pretty minor thing.
Yeah.
Mothers Against Drunk Driving
Right.
really was the organization that really pushed it to the forefront to make it as severe a penalty as what it is now.
Right.
I remember some guys that when I was a kid, police pull them over, they'd be drunk as a skunk, and the police just give them an escort to their house.
Yeah.
Hey, go over there and go in there and sleep it off. It wasn't the automatic lockup.
Oh
like
crap!
it
I
is
got a
now.
DUI.
Oh crap!
Yeah.
I've got a DUI. Now you get a DUI, your insurance is going to go crazy. You're going to go jail, and it's rightfully so. You should.
Yeah.
I think everybody's done some stupid things in their past.
Sure.
And so yeah, rightfully so, because when you get on the road and you're doing these. And you're driving and stuff, you're putting everybody in jeopardy.
Right. And with the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, those organizations, and like growing up, I had Champs, which was choosing healthy activities, and something else, that wasn't Dare. But there's a really good documentary on YouTube about kind of the second side of Dare and how the board was corrupt and how they knew it didn't work and how it actually, it was in 75% of American schools.
Right.
And they did a study that found that the drug usage among adolescents was less common in school districts that didn't have Dare programs.
Right.
And, Evander Holyfield, was on that board, and the deputy police chief, I believe, of Dallas was as well. And, they had researchers coming to him and saying, hey, you guys shouldn't do this. And they did. And, when I had Champs, it was, and I guess this would have been the same for kids in the 80s, it's not education, it's fear mongering,
Right. Right. Well, the one good thing about Dare is it did bring to the forefront drugs and talks to kids about drugs,
Right.
but they also put a police officer in the schools, and we kind of need that now.
Right, and that's another thing that the documentary was kind of going into, is how a lot of this was a surveillance state, and that these police forces were collecting information about students within these schools. And there was you can watch this documentary. They had like a judge ruling that, like, hey, unless there's actually crime going on, you guys can't just investigate these schools. And there was a big scandal about it,
Yeah, there may have been in certain localities, but I I actually got to talk to and meet and walk around with a few dare officers. From one of them was from Somerville, one of them's from here, and they come up and talked to us, gave us a presentation at our children's group and our youth group, and you know what. Most of the dare officers that I talked to were guys that were kind of retired from being on patrol. So they come up and they do this, and they just want to do something good for the community. And I just, I praise them. I give them all the praise for that. But at least the DARE program, and I don't know so much if the DARE program, how effective it is or how ineffective it is, but at least they put an officer in the school.
Right.
Now we get into this thing where, kids getting fight at school, they're getting arrested. And, simple fights and stuff like that, I'm talking about there's a few things I saw on the internet where elementary school kids, they get in a fight and they're getting arrested.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. That's way overreaching. But the DARE program, I would like to know the statistics on that program. I think you brought up a good thing I want to look into to see if it was effective, if it's not very effective, or what it is, and the expenses of it. But the only thing I can say is at least, we get into a rash of school shootings, and I was going to talk about that here in a little bit.
Right.
But at least it puts an officer in the school. It does here anyway.
Right.
And but now we have school resource officers, and so I'm fully for having armed officers. I am not for arming a teacher.
Okay. Really?
Really. Absolutely.
Even with rigorous certification and
No.
I mean, you can have that gun wrestled away from you.
Well, here, 22 years of working for the state, and in the job that I had, you had to be certified every year, right?
In firearms?
Firearms.
Wow.
Yeah. With a pistol, shotgun, and at the time, Mini 14. What I found was that too many people only fired a gun when they had to qualify.
Wow.
That was once a year.
And that's the only time they shot the whole year.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So I do not want a teacher around my kids that only shoots once a year.
Right.
And the majority, I'm going to say it. I know I'm going to have some people that's going to blast me in the comments or something.
Right.
Most teachers are women. Most women do not have interest in guns to go out and shoot them more, to be proficient enough to be safely around kids with them.
Right.
Okay. So, no, I'm all for armed officers,
Right.
and because the majority of officers, and I think if they're going to be a resource officer, I think their qualifications should be a lot different than just standing there at a 10-yard line shooting a paper target, moving back to a 15 and shooting a target, moving back to a 20-yard, shooting a target. And because training, you will always fall back on your training. When something like that happens, where you're having to make those serious type of decisions, and you're making them like this, you will always revert back to your training.
Right.
Always. And so however you train is how you're going to react in any situation, regardless if you're an EMT responding to a life or death situation or a police officer responding to a shooting. You will always revert back to your training. That's fact. And so your training ought to reflect the real world possibilities. So we found that out, 20 back in the early 1990s. We found that out the hard way because the Texas Department of Corrections put out a really good statement when they had some inmates escape from their death row.
Yeah.
And or one inmate escaped from their death row. And what they found was the two towers involved were armed with AR-15s, and which was 223 rounds. The guy escapes between these two towers. Now, give it the towers. I don't know exactly what the distance was, but the guy goes over two fences, and he had wrapped his body in cardboard and taped it up, and so that he could get over the concertina wire. And so both towers open fire on this individual. He escapes. He's still on the property of the prison, gets way out in the outskirts of the property, and he's going to, I think he thought he was going to be able to wade across this little pond that was there. And the cardboard apparently soaks the water up. He winds up drowning in the pond is what I'm getting at.
Is that the policy in prisons? Is if somebody escapes, shoot them?
Yeah.
Really?
That
Wow.
is, the towers are the last realm of defense. So in this case, once they recovered the escaped inmate body and they did an autopsy, they found out of, I think it was 18 shots, 18 to 20 shots, one shot nicked his shoulder. And so the Texas Department of Corrections went back and they said, we got to really take another look at our qualification standards. So they did. They was using the same standards that we used at the time.
Well, but shooting down a guard tower ain't the same as shooting down a range.
No, it's not. And that was that was a rude awakening for the Texas Department of Corrections, is that, we're teaching our guys to shoot at a silhouette target at the 10-yard line,
Directly straight in front of them.
15,
Yeah.
and we're telling them when to shoot. We're telling them how many rounds to shoot. We're telling them this, and that. And they changed their qualification standards, and Georgia changed their qualification standards also. So they don't tell you how many rounds you've got. You're responsible for knowing how many rounds you have. You're moving. You're shooting from behind cover. You're shooting from behind a barricade. So these are more realistic situations.
Right.
There's nobody that you might have to shoot at that's going to stand there and go, okay, shoot me. Okay. So it was more realistic things. But now we're in a whole different environment when we're talking about teachers in the environment, closed environment of a school that's going to have 25 to 35 kids in their class. So children are going to be close proximity.
And I think you'd be creating numerous additional risks.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
For the sake of protecting against
Right.
what is already
Right.
a statistically unlikely scenario.
Right. So, and I've also had people say, well, they could keep it in a safe in their desk.
Right. Right.
And I've went through self-defense training and stuff like that. And one thing I always say to women, what does women do if anything they're carrying winds up in their purse?
And it's about the children, but I think simply that teachers don't get paid enough for us to expect them
to do that extra training, right?
Right. For them to have that extra training,
But
and then
let me give you an example. I always say for most women, and I'm not talking down about women, it's just a fact that most women do not take enough interest in firearms to be proficient to defend themselves, or much less somebody else.
So to them, that's just one more thing they got to do every year.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is if the average woman, and we're not talking about even a teacher, if the average woman is going to carry a weapon, carry a pistol, for example, where does most women put everything they have? In their purse.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
Then they're sitting there digging through it,
Right. If it's in that purse, it might as well be a million miles away from you.
Right.
Because you're not going to be able to, oh, wait a minute, let me get this purse out. No. You have to have quick access to it. So the idea that people make the argument, well, teachers can put it in a safe in their desk drawer. No. Or I've even heard people say, well, the principal's office could have a gun safe and keep all the guns in it.
But it seems like most of these school shootings that do happen are at schools without SROs.
Right.
But I thought there was one a couple years ago, Parkland, where there was an SRO.
Yeah, there was, and that guy should be criminally liable. Okay, because he did not engage. And this is another thing. Uvalde, Texas, it was a prime example of what I'm about to say.
And you saw the police, not going in.
Not going, because the old idea, the old way of thinking in the police training was to surround it, give a perimeter, wait for backup, wait for negotiators. Because, let's say in the 80s and the 70s and earlier, if somebody took a bunch of hostages, it's because they wanted something.
Right. So it's political. It's a bank robbing. It's
right. So this wave of school shootings that we have now, where they don't want nothing but to kill people or have the police.
It's just senseless mass murder with no motive.
You have to get rid of that old way of thinking, and that was the old. What happened in Uvalde, Texas, was the old way of thinking. And again, it goes right back to what I said. Police officers on the scene, that's in that instance, they will revert to exactly what their training is. And their training was woefully terrible.
Is there any fault on account of the Uvalde Police Department, do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And
that they refused to go in, shot after shot.
Yeah, and there is a point where, and I'm not making excuses for these officers, don't get me wrong. There's a point as a man, as a human being, as a father, that they should have went, you know what, the heck with this, going in.
Yeah.
And one who was a Border Patrol did. And that's what finally stopped the shooting.
And initially there was I watched the CCTV. Initially there was like a miscommunication of like what room we're supposed to be in, so that they had like this group of officers that was on one side of the building, and then another group that was clearing out the rooms on a complete other side of the building. Mm-hmm. And it's nuts. And then you see the pretty famous picture of the freaking guy like on his phone, like he's
watching him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they was totally unprepared for that. Totally. And who's responsible for that? Well, the heads of the police department are responsible. County commissioners, city officials, they're all responsible. And though I'm going to tell you, if I had been there that day, and we can all play the Monday morning quarterback, but I can tell you with utmost assurance, if I was one of those parents that arrived there that day, I would arrive there with my rifle, and I would went in that school. They'd had to shoot me to keep me from going.
Well, they would have if they would have.
Right. So I think the whole community, and I don't want to knock on the parents. I'm not knocking on the parents, but the community as a whole was totally unprepared for that because it's a small community, and they just didn't really know what to do. But I will tell you, that shooting, the transgender lady who done the shooting in Tennessee.
And the Nashville one,
Yeah, in Nashville. Have you seen the video of what that police department did as they went into the school?
Yeah, I've seen the videos of them taking the guy out.
Phenomenal. They did exactly what you've got to engage. You cannot wait for backup. You cannot wait for SWAT teams. You've got to get in there and engage. And that means that the police departments have to train for that. That means that the police department has to train their officers, just really drill it into their heads that you have to engage.
Well, one thing I've kind of thought about is, I do want to conceal carry when I can, of course. I'm not 21, but what do you do when you're in a situation where you're a lawful concealed carrier that wants to go after the shooter? How do you not get mistaken for the shooter if you're there before law enforcement's arrived?
hopefully you have good communication. Hopefully, I mean that's one of those questions that really doesn't have a correct answer.
I mean, I've always
know?
thought that if I was a concealed carry guy that was, the first there for, like, I was at the mall and some guy's shooting at the mall and I'm also at the mall with a gun, hey, maybe I should shoot at this guy. How do I not get confused by the police as the shooter?
The one thing you can obviously do is if you know police on the premises, if you know they're coming, if a police officer shows up, by whatever means, don't have the gun in your hand.
Right.
Get your hands up and be totally.
I guess the only thing for you to do, like, preemptively would be to go ahead and call 911 and say, hey, I'm already here at this mall while this shooting's going on. I got a gun. I'm in a blue shirt, jeans.
Right.
Don't shoot me.
Right. But, in the fog of war, things do happen. And I recall that one of our training videos, it was a video of a trooper named Mark Coates, and he was a South Carolina State trooper. This was back when the troopers still carried Smith & Wesson 357.
Wow.
And revolvers. And to make a long story short, Trooper Coates pulls over a guy named Richard Blackburn. And the video, I think you see parts of it on Bluetooth, And the video is quite, if you watch the full video, which we had many years ago, it's an older video. But
and this, you had to watch this for the prison? For working in the prison?
For our training. And the reason why is because Mark Coates is carrying a 357 Magnum with plus power rounds. Plus power rounds is 20 to 25% more powerful than the standard round. Okay, he's got 6 shots in that 357. I've got the exact type of gun that he was carrying that day. It's a Smith & Wesson Model 19. I've shot plus power rounds. They are extremely powerful. Okay. Richard Blackburn's armed, I think, with a little 22. Tell me how I might add that Trooper Coates has a bulletproof vest on too. So tell me how Trooper Coates loses that battle and dies. Richard Blackburn survives. And I'll tell you in the video, Trooper Coates shoots him 5 times, as close as we are, even closer at times. Point blank, center of mass, right here. And winds up being killed by that little 22 that goes through a gap in his bulletproof vest and severs his aorta. So when you look at things like that, you never know what's going to happen, but you can make the odds better on your behalf.
What was the point of that video? How did he survive that? Like, just chance, basically?
Who, Richard Blackburn?
Yeah, like
by chance. It
right.
was totally by chance.
How he won because he was outgunned, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, the last shot that at the last point in the video, they have wrestled and tussled while they're down on the ground. Trooper Coates basically sticks the gun to his chest and fires, and then stands up over top of him because he's still armed, fires down on him and hits him. Trooper Coates winds up firing 6 shots and hits him 5 out of the 6 times, and center of mass, and he carried his mic up on the shoulder, and just like we used to, and right. So he shot him 5 times at this point. He's down on the ground. He's rolling around, but he's still armed. Okay. But he has shot him 5 times. I mean, I don't pretend to know what was going through Trooper Coates' mind at the time, but I can tell from my own, if I've shot this guy 5 times with a 357 Magnum carrying plus power rounds, I would probably think this guy was down. And so Trooper Coates is actually calling for backup at that time. When Richard Blackburn rolls around and produces the gun, and he fires, and he takes just a pop shot, but that pop shot goes through Trooper Coates' upper arm, through his gap in his vest on the side, and severed his aorta, and he dies right there on the video.
Wow.
The reason why I brought up that video, is what happens afterwards. Okay, what happened afterwards was there was a trooper named Jacobs, who hears after Trooper Coates shoots. Let me add this: when Richard Blackburn fires the pop shot, Trooper Coates flinches because he flinches and he fires his sixth shot, which I think missed. But he runs around to the other side of Richard Blackburn's car, okay, to get the car in between himself and Richard Blackburn. He's trying to take cover. He's calling for backup. He's screaming on the radio. As he's doing that, he's slowly laying down, and lays down on the side.
So when you were going through this training, what was meant to be the point or the lesson of this video?
The point of it, well, the point for us at that time was to let us know, hey, because we had perimeter vehicles and stuff that encountered the public, many times, a lot of times, because they would want to come down there. So it was to let us know that, hey, you need to be vigilant, need to watch what you're doing, and if you ever get in this situation, don't count that the person is down. It also was there for us to be observant, and because immediately they asked us right after the training, how many shots were fired, who fired what shot, and blah, 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 which I answered all correctly because they didn't know it. I had given them that video myself. I had that video for years and had presented the training officers with the video at the time.
Right.
I've seen that thing a million times.
So how was this video? Like, was it the dash cam from the trooper's car?
Yeah, it was the dash cam from the trooper's car. And then they split the screen because it was a training video. I actually checked out at the training facility down in Forsyth, and I'd made me a copy of it so I could keep it because it's so profound of a video. So they had made a full training video, and when they after the shooting happens, they split the screen so that you see what's happening on one side of Trooper Coates' video, and then you see what Trooper Jacobs is seeing as he pulls up on the scene. And that's the interesting part there, was because you was asking about how do I keep myself from getting shot if I'm the one that's taking out the shooter. Well, and you can do what these truckers did in this video, because Trooper Jacobs hears Trooper Coates call for backup. He's been shot, and as a matter of fact, early on in the video, when Trooper Jacobs is just talking with Richard Blackburn, you could see Trooper Coates drive by in his state patrol car. Well, he gets on up the road, and then suddenly the shooting happens. He hears it on the radio. He wheels around. He comes back. And Trooper Jacobs, when he got out of his car, he ain't saying, hey, y'all, please get down on the ground. Please do this. He's not doing that. And what has happened between the time the shooting has happened and the time Trooper Jacobs arrives on the scene, two truckers who saw everything happen pull over to help the Trooper Coates, right? So they're armed with a .380. So they're standing there over that trooper. Now picture this in your head.
Okay.
They're standing over that trooper with a .380, right? Richard Blackburn, who has done the shooting, has rolled over in a ditch on the other side of the car. It cannot be seen by Trooper Jacobs. So when Trooper Jacobs pulls up, his attention is on those two truckers standing over that falling trooper.
Wow.
Okay?
Not a good look.
And he is not being nice. He is, I'll blow your blank head off. Get down on the ground, you MFers. I will kill you right now. And thank God that they listened to him and they got down on the ground, which I think what they should have done when they saw his car coming up, They should have got rid of that gun or set the gun down, backed up away from it, got down on the ground, whatever. Because after they showed that part in the video, they asked Trooper Jacobs, the people that made the video, asked him, had them truckers not listened to you, would you have shot him? He said, there was no doubt in my mind I would have shot them. And luckily they were getting down on the ground, and they were letting him know that the guy that done the shooting is over in that ditch.
Yeah, well, but when you're in a heightened situation like that, it's hard to explain yourself to the police. Like, hey, not me, him. You know,
Right, right. But the moral of the story is, if you're in that situation, do what you're told to do.
Yeah.
Argue the point later. You know, you can argue the point. Let them cuff you. Let them do whatever they're going to do. But don't get yourself shot.
Right, by the police.
By the police, you know, because the cop don't want to shoot you.
Right.
You know, and that would, so the idea of standing there arguing at that point, thank God those truckers didn't do it. When he said, get your, you know, he was cussing them. They could have went, hey, you can't cuss me like that. And they probably would have got shot.
Right.
But thank God they did exactly what he said to do. And thank God that Trooper Jacobs, in that situation, had enough common sense about his head not to shoot him.
Right.
You know, and the prerequisites to a deadly use force is what I said: ability,
right.
jeopardy, and opportunity. And so Trooper Jacobs, in the situation he was in, I give him all the credit for having enough sense about him not to take that shot, and because he very well could have.
Yeah.
I mean, he pulls up and he sees a down trooper and two guys standing over him with a 380.
Right.
You know, so thank God he had the sense not to do that, and that goes right back to training. You know, and being able to absorb your training, being able to conduct yourself, falling back on your training, and knowing exactly what to do. I did CPR on a woman years ago, and your adrenaline's up.
What happened?
I was actually, when we was living down in our other house, I was actually outside washing my car. I was in a pair of shorts and flip flops, washing my car. And people that had been visiting my neighbors, they were from Florida, this couple, and I'm guessing they were in their late 40s, something like that. But they had been at my neighbor's house all weekend. This was on a Monday morning. I was off this day, and my neighbor had left to go to work, and they were staying there at his house. They had been, I didn't know it at the time, but they had been out to eat, and they come back, and I was out there washing my car, and this car pulls up right in front of my house, and I see them. I recognize them as the people that were visiting my neighbor. They go up, and the man gets out of the car. He knocks on the door of my neighbor's house. Of course, my neighbors don't answer. I didn't see anything out of the way. It just, everything's kind of calm. I'm just going about my business. Guy gets back in his car and he pulls back down in front of my house, gets out of his car, and he yells up at me. He said, "Hey, can you give me a hand?" I thought his car was broke down. I thought he was having car problems. And I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" I just kind of dropped the hose and I started walking toward him. And he said, "My wife is passed out in the front seat." And I just bolted down through there. And when I got to the door, I opened up her door. Her head was laid back like this over the headrest. She was staring at the ceiling. She was dead already.
Wow.
And she was fairly good size. And this is at a time when just people are starting to carry cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone on me.
Okay.
And
so it was probably like what, 2008?
A little bit earlier.
A little bit earlier.
It's around, because it was around 98, 97, something like that. And but my front door was open, and I physically told him, held him by the shoulders, and I said, "Go to my front door. There's a phone in there just to the left. Call 911." And he stands there for a split second. He's not this. I did not realize, but this guy has been in shock the entire time. And from the time he went up and pulled up in my neighbor's yard and knocked on the door, he's in shock and he's kind of in this zone where he's just going through motions. He's not mentally there.
Right.
Is what I'm getting at. So when he just kind of stands there, I physically turned him around, and I said, "You see that door?" I'm shaking him. He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Go through that door, call 911." Right. So I kind of shoved him, and I got to her, and I pulled her out on the ground, and she was a fairly heavy lady. And when I pulled her out, I was not playing around. I snatched her out of the car as fast and hard as I could, and I started doing CPR on her. And whether or not he actually, this is a lesson that I've thought over for the years. Most people will freeze up in that situation. I'm not trying to say I'm some kind of hero, but what I found afterwards was kind of astonished me. But I never knew if he was the one that called 911. Still don't to this day, because all my attention went to her. And so,
Did she make it?
no.
No.
Wow. And here's another thing: when this happens, you will revert to your training, okay? And you cannot have any hesitancy. Like most people wouldn't want to pull her shirt off or cut her bra.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
You have to do that.
I got CPR certified through my law enforcement class.
Right.
And I think they said something around it's only like 40% chance of them actually surviving.
Right. Well, here's the one thing they cannot emphasize enough in CPR training is the amount of vomit that happens.
Really?
Yes. And here's two things that somebody that has given CPR can tell you. Number one, you're going to break a rib. It's going to happen. Expect it to happen. Number two, there's going to be vomit involved.
I see. They didn't really tell us that.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a vomit, and there's going to be a lot of it. And this is why they teach you to carry a mask. And I didn't have a mask. I expected to break a rib. I expected that. Felt it on the first pump. I felt it. Okay. So that didn't freak me out at all. The vomit did. But what went through my head at that time was her only chance is me doing this CPR. I can get over this vomit. And when I would stop CPR,
Was she like sitting there like throwing up, like.
Well, when you blow into somebody's, when you tilt their head and you blow into their mouth, some of that air is going to go into the lungs. Some of it's going to go into the stomach. Well, whatever's in that stomach has to come back out. And that's what, and we're talking about, I would blow into her mouth and bring my head back, and there would be vomit that would come squirt up over her mouth like this.
Wow.
And I don't mean to get gross. I'm getting gross for
okay.
people. But, and then I do my chest compressions. Now, there was nobody there when this initially started but me, okay? But then the neighbor's daughter that lived across the street from us, she was studying at the time to become a nurse. So she come running out. She didn't know how to do two-person CPR, but she helped me tremendously. And this is why I say if you're a bystander and you see somebody give CPR, jump in there and help them, even if you don't know how to do CPR. And she didn't know how, but she sure enough helped me, because the problem I was having every time I went to go from giving her breaths and do chest compressions, her head would flop over to the side. And this is another thing. When you're on those CPR dummies, that head stays in position pretty good.
Right, it
Right?
does.
It will not in real life. Every time you have to readjust their head, you have to readjust, tilt their head and everything. And that was really becoming a problem when I was giving this lady CPR. So the young girl, her name was Christy. When Christy got there, I asked her if she knew how to do two-person CPR. She said no, but she had a stethoscope with her. And that was a big help too. She didn't know how to do it. I said, well, all right, just hold her head in position. And just her doing that helped tremendously. And I gave this woman CPR, and I continued doing it. I'm in the middle of the road, bare knees on the road. My knees were just ate up, right? And I gave her CPR. The EMTs got there. The EMTs started giving her CPR, but we had to suction her mouth out because there was so much. Every so often, I would have to tilt her head, clear her mouth because of the vomit. And when the EMTs got there, we was able to suction out the vomit, and they took over the compressions, and I bagged her with the bag. And I gave some form of CPR to her, bagged her until we actually put her in the ambulance. When we put her in the ambulance and closed the doors, that was the time I was done. And to this day, I cannot tell you, because of adrenaline, I can't tell you if I gave her CPR for 5 minutes or half an hour. I have no idea, and I still don't have no idea. But what I can tell you is that when I closed those doors, it's like this, and I turned around, and there was a whole group of people standing there watching me. And only one person offered to help, and that was Christy. And all these other people were standing there, just standing there.
Wow.
And when it initially started, there was nobody there but me, that woman's husband, who was really no help at that time, understandably, and that woman.
Wow.
And then when I closed those doors, it's like, and I turned around and I saw all those people standing there. So now the panic kind of set in on me, and I'm like, did I do things right? Did I give the right amount of compressions? At that time, it was 15 and 2, and they've changed it since then. And so did I do this right? Did I do that right? I actually went back in the house, called my training officers at work, and told them this is what I did. I said, calm down, Tucker. You did the exact what you're supposed to do. Just calm down, take a breath,
How come she didn't end up making it?
There was no telling. I don't know how long she was dead before I started CPR on her, because there was no telling how long it was. She died in the car, and time is everything in something like, she had a massive heart attack. I don't think that even if anybody had given her CPR as soon as she had this heart attack, I don't think she would have survived. And their husband, God bless him, he was just stunned. I mean, the state of mind that he was in, most people would have probably been in.
Yeah.
So I actually went to the hospital. I called Kathy. She was at work. Told her what happened, and I'm going to get into some stuff with you here. When I called her, let her know what had happened, I said, I'm going up to the hospital. So I go to the hospital, and I'm hoping to hear that she's made it. I didn't know these people. I didn't know them, but when something like that happens, you get to know them real quick. And I didn't know her prior to giving her CPR, but right after that CPR, I knew everything I needed to know about her and her husband, and made a great friend with her husband.
Do you still know him?
I still know him. I haven't had any contact with him since we moved here.
Where did this go down at?
At our previous house down south of town.
Oh, here in Lafayette still?
Yeah.
Okay.
And But every time after that, he come up to visit, he'd always make a point to come over and see me, and we'd talk. And that was pretty cool. And the thing is, when adrenaline happens, it's always totally it boggles my mind that I lost all track of time. And if you come up to me right now, somebody that was there when that day said, "Oh, you only did it for 5 minutes CPR," oh, I'd be okay. Or if they come up to me and say, "Oh, you did it for an hour," I'd be like, "Oh, okay." I have no idea. I imagine it was a long time because I was really hurting in my knees and stuff, and I was a lot younger then. I could take that, man, but my knees were tore up. And the thing I wanted to tell you was the mind is an amazing thing. We was talking about earlier. We was talking about mental illness and stuff. The mind is an amazing thing. As a veteran, I always heard that these veterans that had PTSD would have flashbacks and stuff like that. I didn't believe any of it. And my dad, before I go any further, I'm going to say my dad used to be a deputy sheriff up in Tennessee, and he saw some pretty horrific things as a deputy. And 3 or 4, let me mind you, before I went to the hospital, I'd got in the shower because I had vomit all over me. I mean, it had went in my mouth, my nose. Oh. It was all over me. I had went in there and washed real good, took a shower before I went up to the hospital. And it was about 3 or 4 days afterwards, and I'm sitting at my dad's house. And I every once in a while when the wind, I don't know, it just seemed like when the breeze was just right or something, I could smell vomit. And I go, "Dad," I told my dad, I said, "Dad," I said, "every once in a while I smell that vomit." I said, "Look," and I've taken showers and put on cologne and all kinds of stuff. I said, "How do you get this stuff out of you?" I think it might be in my mustache or something, maybe in my nose. And I never thought about it. And my dad looked at me, he said, "It's all in your head." And I said, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "It's all in your head. It'll go away." And that was really interesting to me. And I had never thought about that, but he was absolutely right. And so your mind, when you have that adrenaline rush, your mind over time has to do something with that kind of thought process. And so it went on for about a week or so. I was like, boy, every once in a while I kind of smell that vomit, because it was that pronounced, the vomit was, and it was that really hardcore. I don't want to say hardcore. The adrenaline is just going everywhere when that happens. So, yeah, I believe totally now in PTSD. I believe in that veterans, especially Vietnam veterans and stuff, have flashbacks. And so, yeah, I believe in all that stuff.
Yeah. That's a rough story, man. Wow. I mean, like, what did your dad say about the whole thing? Like, what did he think about it?
Well, my dad had come up on a couple of times where when he was a deputy sheriff, where somebody committed suicide or unalived themselves,
right,
with a shotgun.
Yeah,
and that's not a pretty sight. And so those images kind of stayed with him. So he had a pretty good understanding.
What was that like growing up with a cop dad?
Oh, now my dad was a deputy back when I was just a little bitty kid, and so my uncle was a cop till the day he died up there, and it was, for me, I was very young. I really don't. I was too young to understand the dangers of the job. Let's put it that way. But one of the things I do understand, it's going to kind of go right along it with this gun control stuff. My dad, again, bring the old 357 Magnums into play. My dad carried a 357 Magnum. And when he come in, his duty belt went off, and he set it on the counter in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's where it stayed, on the counter in the kitchen. And as a kid, I had full access to it.
Wow.
Full access to that gun. I could have picked it up anytime I wanted
Right,
to.
and it would have been some trouble because it was your dad's service gun. So if you did shoot somebody with it, it's like, hey, this kid shot somebody with his dad's service gun.
Yeah, but here's two things my dad did. Two things. We knew not to touch that gun. If we touched that gun in any way, shape, form, or fashion, it was behind tore up city. I mean, he would light into us. We never, he made that very clear. I personally never touched it.
I mean, nowadays people expect people to lock up their guns from the kids.
Right, but here's on the same token, my dad, even though I was that young, he knew that we had curiosity, right? So he would take us out. Of course, I was too small to be handling a gun like that by myself, but he would kneel down, so to speak. I'd be standing. He'd be reached around me like this, and he'd actually be holding the gun, and I'd have my hand on his, and he'd say, okay, show me how to aim it. So he's got full control of the gun. But in the process of doing that, and we shoot a target or something. In the process of doing that, he has satisfied my curiosity.
Right.
Okay. And but he never locked his guns up. My dad never locked his guns up. But you have to understand too. Here's the one that's going to freak you. I graduated high school in 1986, right?
Yeah.
When I was in high school, right here at this old high school right here, it was not uncommon to see students' trucks. They had them gun racks in the back window of their truck and have guns in it, loaded guns.
Yeah.
In the school parking lot in a vehicle.
If you did that today, you're so screwed.
Yeah, you're so. I mean, but
I don't know if I've told you this story. I almost got a felony because I brought a knife to school. Actually, my junior year, I had a little pocket knife about like this one, and I was in the last block of the day, and I was just trying to fish like some paper out of my pocket, like I was
fell out.
Yeah, and it plopped down right on the floor, basically at the teacher's feet, and yeah, they were gonna give me a felony, but I mean I'm Ethan Wallin, so they weren't like really gonna give me a felony, but they were definitely like kind of dangling like, hey man, this is a felony, because man, I'll never forget Ronnie Massey. This was Ronnie Massey. Who was the vice principal at the time, and later went on after I graduated to get, I don't know if you know this, but he actually got like 12 counts of kitty explicit.
Oh, was that teacher?
Well, yeah, I didn't want to say the word on the video, but CP, you know, it was that guy, and I'll never forget he took the little tape measure out because he's got a little tape measure in his pocket or in his desk, and he goes, yeah, this is a felony, son, because in Georgia anything above 3.5 inches is a felony.
All right.
Right. So there's these, the knife laws in Georgia are really weird. So the Walker County policy is no weapons at all.
Right.
But the Georgia law is that if you have a blade that is of the length of 2.5 inches or less, I believe that's the number. It's like 2.5 inches or less. It's not classified as a weapon in Georgia. Therefore, is not unlawful to be in the school.
Wow.
But each school district has their own policy, and every school district has a policy that says no knives at all. Even though the state law, you reasonably would be able to. But I had this felony knife from this. They were going to give it to me, and then they just kind of walked in and said, hey, we're not really going to give you the felony. And I said, why? Yeah, that's what I said. Honestly, I said, why?
Why?
Yeah, and Miss Stoltz said, because you could never work any kind of public service job. Basically, they were just cutting me a break, right? Because it was stupid. And, this this Ronnie Massey thing too. I kind of wanted to bring that up. Man, that's insane.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
I haven't. It happened after I graduated, and I haven't been able to like talk to anybody on the inside, like of the school district, to kind of see what the reaction on the inside was. Because I was telling you about getting CPR certified through school. That's Perry Fouts, the teacher that does that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in his class. His class was the first semester of my senior year.
Yeah.
And I remember Ronnie Massey coming in there and like talking to him like they were like buddies. Like he came to his office like like not on principal business, just to chat it up with Mr. Fouts.
Mm-hmm.
So for the longest time I've wondered like what the reaction on the inside of the school district was when this happened, and who was involved, and whose computer, what's on Zach Reynolds' computer.
That would be nice to know, wouldn't it?
Right. And it now that my class and the ones that came before are the ones that really know Ronnie Massey the best.
Right.
And he was the boys discipline teacher, or not that I say the boys discipline teacher. He was the assistant principal that dealt with boys discipline. And you only ever really saw talk about it on Facebook. And, there wasn't an outrage that I feel like there really should have been, that this kind of happened under everybody's nose. Yeah.
So was it, they got some of that kitty videos and stuff?
Well,
Or did he actually essay some of the kids?
right. So the official story is that there was a anonymous cyber tip
Okay.
submitted to the Chattooga County Sheriff's Office, and they went to his house and raided his.
Wow.
Yeah, they went to his house and took all his stuff. Full blown. All that. But I had a buddy's girlfriend tell me that, I guess she has some inside information, but when this had first emerged, I had initially wondered if the material in question had originated from his duties as a school principal.
Right.
Because, it happens, teenagers send nudes to each other. Sometimes it all falls apart and the school gets involved. So I had wondered if it had stemmed from his role as the vice principal, and it turned out that it did. Mm-hmm. And that the material in question was that of Lafayette High School students.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is the guy sitting here telling me that I can't have a knife, but he can have.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just for anybody that's listening to us, if you live in the state of Georgia, Georgia does keep the sex offender registry on the internet, and it is public access, so you can look up your community.
See,
and stuff.
I don't know if one of the conditions of his, I don't know, like, I don't even think he's like officially been sentenced yet, or like there's
Really?
right. He did
How long ago was this?
not long ago at all. This was probably 3 months ago, closer.
Oh, I'm thinking of something that happened
No, this is
a couple of years ago.
This is very, very, very recent.
Really?
Yes, like that's what I'm saying, because like this basically exploded right after graduation.
And what was his name again?
Ronnie Massey. Yeah.
Wow.
So we all.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
You definitely should, but we graduated. He was there in the ceremony in his attire and in his robe, and then we graduated. Probably about a week, all this blew up. No joke.
Wow. So he's been indicted
Yes.
on this.
Oh, he had a.
So we need to stress is alleged. Everything's alleged,
Right.
Because
Well,
he has not been convicted of anything.
Well, he posted 10-gram bail and did plead guilty.
He pled guilty.
Yes, he did.
Okay. So he just hadn't been sentenced yet.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. And the bail, I guess the bond or bail was 10 grand, and he posted it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was like back home the following evening.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another Dairy Queen in Lafayette.
Yeah.
And it was over where where the Food City is.
Yeah.
Over here.
Which used to be a theater, right? Did that used
Yeah.
to be?
Well, right there where Food City and the Dollar General, there in the corner right there. In Lafayette, yeah. Right there in that empty corner. Oh, that's where the theater was.
Wow.
But coming back up this way where the I think there was a workout place in there, but coming back up to this end closer to the road, that's where the Dairy Queen was.
Right.
It was a building there. It's not, the building's no longer there, but that's where
Well, I worked at this Dairy Queen when it was kind of still in its infancy. And there was a guy, I was a service kid, I didn't really do that. Mm-hmm. It was my first job.
Yeah.
But there was this guy that came along that they had working the grill, doing the dishes, and I'll say his freaking name. His name was Robert Chambers. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of told me that his story was, hey, he did a 10-year stint at Hayes because his buddy threw drugs underneath his seat and he got pinched for it. That was his story,
Yeah.
They got pulled over. His buddy threw drugs under his seat. He took the fall for it. 10 years at Hayes. He's 54 working at Dairy Queen to get back up on his feet. That's the story, I believe. Mm-hmm. And one day, it was my off day, and I just said, hey, let's go look at the sex offender registry. And I did.
And there he was.
Yeah. And I sent that crap to my mom and then my boss, and they actually didn't initially fire him. And I don't.
See, let me tell you this. Everybody in prison is innocent. That's the story you'll get. And before you told me that he was a sex offender, I was already thinking, yeah, he's BSing you.
And I was a young kid, I bought this story, and
right.
I guess he's kind of this crackhead liar kind of guy. He told me his son, and I somehow believe this, gosh, I was young, but he told me his son was the president of Hershey's, or the president of this Hershey's factory in Alaska. Oh. I'm like, whoa, man, your son's what? Ain't that a creative? And I'm a gullible
Since
kid.
Hershey is in Pennsylvania.
Well, it ticked me off because like this guy kind of he had my sympathy. Hey, young guy, I considered him something of a friend. At work. And then I found out he did this, and I blow it wide open. I tell our boss, and he walks into work the next day, starts filling his drink up at the drink machine. I'm running the lobby, and I just go in there and I say, Robert, you want to tell me why you really went to prison, bro?
Really? Yes, what did he say to you?
He just said, oh God, you didn't tell Ali, did you? And I said, you're damn right I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, good for you.
Good for you. He just said, you didn't tell Ali, did you? And I said, F yeah, I did. And I grabbed him by his shoulder and I said, level 3 sex offender, you son of a bitch, and just kind of threw him back, and that was it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, good for you. You want to know why? Because there's no such thing as a rehabilitated sex offender or rehabilitated child molester.
Right.
Okay? There's no such thing.
Yeah.
A child molester is attracted to children just like...
And there's this thing where
we might be attracted to females of our
Well, we got to call them minor attracted persons because that's the right thing to call them.
No. When they start that crap, it's trying to make it more palatable so you can accept it easier, which is something I will never accept.
Right.
But on the same token, I will say this.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Completely impossible for somebody who's attracted to children to stop being attracted to children.
Right.
And I'm not making that up as an excuse. I'm saying I think child molesters should be put to death because you know what? Rid the world of them and make our children even safer. Yeah. That's my opinion, but I don't. That's my opinion. My opinion is like an elbow. Everybody's got one or two. Anyway.
Well, I've had some conversations with people about this, and a lot of folks think that there's this almost unnecessary over fetishization of murdering child molesters, which is a little weird, but as for the death penalty, I mean, I'm fine with that. And, Alabama chemically castrates them, which is,
chemical castration.
Yeah. Alabama does that. And I mean, the Prophet Muhammad of Islam, took his first wife at the age of 6.
Yeah. And boy, you just dropped a a hot topic right there.
I mean, we can talk about the fact that the beloved
Yeah.
Islamic prophet married a 6-year-old. It's
Yep.
it's not a pseudo belief. It's in the Quran that her name was Ayesha, but he did not consummate her, which means to bang her, until the age of 9, and that's completely in the Quran. It's not like pseudo religion history at all.
Right. And that's a hot topic that these Islamic, I want to say, friends, supporters. Let's
Sure.
say these Islamic supporters,
Anti-Islamophobia,
yeah, they don't want you to hear about that,
even though it's the truth.
even though it's the truth. You'll never hear it. You'll never hear about that on TV. You'll never hear about that on certain social media platforms.
Yeah, and I'm really off put. And we didn't talk about the broad stuff, but I don't really accept any political labels. But I'm very, very off put by the left's love of Islam.
Right.
Now, of course, I totally believe in religious freedom, and Muslim people have a right to be Muslim in the United States without any bothering of the government.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't take away from the fact that Islam is kind of this ass backwards third world, and many of these things, not everybody would, but many of these things that I'm saying can also be applied to Christianity. That it's kind of a little bit of a kind of ass backwards, maybe third world desert religion, and it's it doesn't really give us anything. And the left loves the gays, and they basically love everything that Islam hates. So it's you see the gays for Palestine stuff, and
when in reality, if those same transgenders and gays,
they're not welcome.
I'm not trying to group everybody together, but here's the fact: if they were in Palestine,
they'd be thrown off building, and they are thrown off buildings.
Killed.
Yeah,
they would be killed.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I don't really understand the left's love for Islam, other than the fact that I guess
it's ignorance.
It's
people not educating themselves.
Yeah.
They want to throw around that MAGA Republicans are ignorant and stuff like that. When you look at some of those who are throwing those claims around that have never been outside the United States themselves and actually seen some of the areas that you see on the news and see how people act in certain areas. When, let's put it this way, when Trump called certain parts of the world shithole countries, he was speaking the exact truth. And because, being in the Navy, we went a lot of places and we used that exact term in certain areas because it's just the truth. And so I know we went to Naples, Italy. And now Italy is a beautiful country, don't get me wrong. But the area of Naples that we went to was a shithole. It was an absolute shithole. And there were places that we went to right outside of Haifa, Israel. In those areas, it was just a shithole. So it's very easy to go and say stuff like Pakistan is a shithole country because it is. And we went to places that you would pull up to, and from a distance, I remember out right outside of Alexandria, Egypt, as we pulled up to the docks, I was looking, oh wow, look at these big buildings and everything out here from a distance. But as we got closer and closer, them buildings are kind of crumbling.
And it's like
the
slums.
It's like, oh geez, this is going to turn out to be a real shithole. And it was. The only thing that that made it worth it for us is that we was able to take tours from a tourism company, and we got discounts from it. So they threw us on the bus, got us through the shithole part, and we went on up to the Cairo Museum, the Cairo Plateau, and stuff like that. But these people that at that time that was around like the pyramids and stuff. We called them Hey Joes because they was always, hey Joe, come here, and they want to sell you a fake Rolex or something, you know.
I wanted to tell you about that. Before I went to my New York trip, we went to Charleston, South Carolina, man. And one thing I didn't know was these Charleston rose peddlers. And they had, this farmer's market that we went to, when they had along every column, do not take please do not take roses from rose peddlers. And it turns out, like we had kind of gotten to talking and hearing some of the locals, it turns out that these basically, here's the scheme. So they got these young, good, relatively clean looking young black men that are out in the streets of Charleston, and they go to these tourist spots. And I mean, if you're from a tourist town, you can spot an out of towner from a mile away. And so they basically they got a $5 bill for my stepdad, but the scheme is that they're collecting donations for their basketball team. No school clothes and on and off. No school clothes. Doing this during school hours, outside of what would reasonably be basketball season, and they get your money, and then if you don't, they kind of shame you or whatever. And this next group that we had saw, my mom kind of told them off, and they like kind of did this hand gesture. And I went on Google and I just typed in Charleston rose peddlers, and there's a story that comes out just about every year. There's a story of these rose peddlers beating up tourists that told them off. Yeah. And then again, you go into the farmer's market where they're outside of this market haggling, and then there's literally placards built in that say, do not take roses from rose peddlers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. And they're just little twerps that go around doing this. And again, the locals had said that they'll be out doing this during school hours.
Really?
Yes. So
wow.
Yeah. So that's one thing I never did. So if you ever go to Charleston, watch out for the rose peddlers.
Well, I had the opportunity to go to Charleston back when I was still with the reserves, and I elected not to go. So, because I was going to have to foot the bill. The only reason was I was going to have to foot the bill for my transportation.
Oh, really?
Nah, I'm not doing that. And but when we talk about shithole places within the world, the United States is not the exemption, because we went to plenty of shithole places in the United States. And one of the places that was the biggest armpit of the country and was Philadelphia, and specifically South Street in Philadelphia. And we had to go up there. We was there for about a week because we was going to get on the carrier that was in dry dock up there. And so South Street is this strip where all the partying goes on. So where all the let me tell you, when you go I don't care what country, city you're in, when you go down near the docks, you're going to see the dregs of humanity come out. And
why the docks?
Because that's just where everybody congregates right there. And in South Street, there was a lot of bars and stuff up and down South Street. I had to do shore patrol there. Now, when we was in shore patrol, you're wearing the goofy Navy uniform. You got a badge, a baton, and a big old SP on your sleeve that says, SP, Shore Patrol. And we had to walk up. Our area was so many blocks up.
Of like a beach?
Yeah, of a beat. No, a beat. Like
okay.
Walking a beat.
Well, but I'm saying it's shore patrol, so like were you like on a boat?
Well, it's just like what the Army calls MP.
Okay, so it's an MP for the Navy.
Yeah,
okay.
The Navy Marine Corps calls it shore patrol. And really we're there to police our own people. Drunks, somebody gets too drunk, acting stupid, we'll cuff them up if we have to. We might escort them if they being cooperative. We just escort them back to the ship and give them bedtime story, tell them a lullaby, and
right.
leave them. or if they acted stupid, we'd have to put them in cuffs and they might wind up at the brig or something like that. But Shore Patrol was a watch that everybody stood. You wasn't specifically, in security to stand that watch. Yeah. Our squadron, we had people, petty officers and above, could be standing watch, Shore Patrol. And but what I was getting at, we had a portion of South Street where we had to walk up so many blocks and come back. That was our beat or our patrol. And it never failed. Every time I walked up, somebody was going to approach me wanting to sell me hash, pot. Back then it was cocaine or crack.
This was in Philly?
In Philadelphia. Wow. Me in uniform.
Wow.
They had no hesitation about approaching you. Now, again, this time I'm out on liberty, right? So we're in our civilian clothes. And they had this, there was a lot of these little sidewalk cafes there. And, us squids, we would go out there, we'd be drinking some beer, just watching everything going on. And I know a group of us, we were sitting at this table, and there was this young girl that was sitting a table away from us. And right in front of her table was this car that was on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Now, it took me a little bit to realize what was happening. That car, there was like those little stuffed animals, like you see little dolls with stuffed animals, and they were taped up to the windows so to the point where it totally blocked your view inside the car. And I thought, well, it's just somebody's freaking car sitting there, and I didn't really pay no attention to it. There's all this stuff going on over here. There was bars and everything. People are out walking around, and every so often I'd look around and see that girl getting out of that car. She'd go back to her table. And then I started watching, and she was taking Johns into that car. She was a prostitute, taking Johns into that car, doing their business, and then she'd come back, sit at that table, and wait on the next one. So I was like, wait a minute, did I just see what was going on here? And but we had become numb to that stuff because we just saw it so much. There was no, oh my God, eureka, because we just saw it so much. We no more paid attention to her than would have paid attention to any normal customer sitting there at that table.
Right.
And again, we're not immune to being a shithole country because we have some shithole cities in our country. And a lot of people that, and I'm not just knocking on Philadelphia. That was just one part of Philadelphia. The rest of the city might have been fantastic, but that was what we would see here. Another, right around Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, it's a shithole place. It was, unless they've cleaned that up. And we're talking about North Carolina.
Why around
It's just a
Camp
shithole
Lejeune?
place because wherever the military is, it attracts these awful businesses and just
do you think
the dregs of humanity
do you think
come out.
military towns kind of attract this niche little party culture almost?
Well, yeah, but if you walked out the front gates of Camp Lejeune, at that time you had Toby's Strip Club.
As soon as you walked out of Camp Lejeune?
Right, just not far,
Right.
far. Just Toby's. I'll be polite and say strip bar. Then you had bar, adult entertainment. I never knew what the heck that was. It wasn't movies.
It was just a big sign that said adult entertainment.
Adult entertainment that you went into, and I was like, okay. And pawn shops, all the big pawn shops everywhere. So unless they've cleaned that place up, it was a shithole. Unfortunately, for the Navy and Marine Corps, when you had Navy bases around, like big Navy bases, that's the way at that time the communities was on the outside of the bases. And Camp Lejeune was like that. Now, where I was stationed at, which was down in Cecil Field in Jacksonville, Florida, Cecil Field was a small aviation, base, and the community was not like that. Outside the community was really pro Navy, pro military.
Right.
I mean, but I could go up to the Navy base there at Norfolk, Virginia, and you know the old adage was you'd see signs, "Keep your sailors off my grass," and people just freaking hated the Navy for the most part. And you know what? We probably earned that, whereas when I went to Air Force bases, which I went to Nellis Air Force Base, and they had us in a hotel off the base there. And so every morning we'd have to catch a shuttle. They provided a shuttle for us, and the shuttle was marked Nellis Air Force Base. It was very clearly marked. And so every morning we'd catch that, and we'd go to the base, which was a few miles up the road. We literally had people that we would pull out on the highway, going up the highway. I know a couple of times we had people that would run up alongside of us, and they're taking pictures of us, like we was some kind of rock star or something. And I was like, dang, man, the Air Force has got it going on. And why? Because they behaved themselves a lot better than us Navy and Marine Corps people did. And so the communities that we ran into outside of Air Force Base were totally pro Air Force, a whole different group of people. And but in the major were the big bases, which Norfolk is the largest U.S. Navy base in the world, and for most of the people, they're just they did not respect you for being in the Navy.
Right.
Let's say
The way you typically think that people
like
do,
you think
yeah.
they would, yeah. But
So it's kind of that same attitude that locals have towards tourists in tourist
right,
towns. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And and we rightfully so. I mean, we probably earned that reputation.
So what would y'all do? Just go out and just trash bars?
Trash bar. It'd be idiots go out and trash bars. Hey, lock up your wives and your girlfriends and your daughters. Because some freaking squids. I remember. This is the absolute truth. I'm telling you, this is the absolute truth. We had on base there at Cecil Field, we had what was called the E Club. I can't remember what the name. They had a name for. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, at Cecil Field there was no ships. It was a Navy base, Naval Air Station. It was all squadrons, multiple squadrons of S-3 Vikings, F-18s. I think there was. I don't think at that time there was no F-14 squadrons, but mainly F-18s and S-3s, different type of aircraft. Multiple squadrons there. I can guarantee you, if a squadron went out on deployment, squadron anywhere from 100, 200 people. If a squadron went on deployment on Monday, if you went to that E Club on Friday, it was packed with women. Okay? Now, let me remind you of something. Cecil Field was a closed base. You have to show an ID to get on that base.
And at a military ID or
military or ID or what spouses had what they called Deer's IDs, right? One or the other had to be showed. So
to get on
that base. And it wasn't like some of these bases, some of the bigger bases were open bases where you couldn't tell where the base started and the
right.
civilian property. You have to pass through a guard shack at Cecil Field. You had to show either your dealer's ID or your military ID, or they had contractors that worked there. Very few, but mostly it was military or Deer's ID. So a squadron leaves on deployment, or maybe two squadrons leave on deployment on a Monday. You go to the E Club on Friday.
And the E Club is what?
The E Club is a bar.
Okay, and it's a bar on base.
Yeah.
So how would all these non-military girls get into the bar?
They wasn't non-military. They'd be the wives and daughters of those sailors that just went on deployment. Swear to that. Swear to that. That was a well-known thing. And everybody in that club either showed a military ID or a Deer's ID to get on the base. And now let me say this. If you was the wife, let's say one of the females, okay?
Right.
Maybe she was a wife of somebody. Maybe she was in the Navy herself. Now, she could bring a carload of friends and sponsor all those friends under her military ID. Now, they could do that, okay?
So just the driver had to have the ID.
Anybody, one person had to have military ID at that time. But at that time, yeah. So they could sponsor somebody else, you know. Oh, come on. There wasn't that many people that was doing that. And so when you go to that E Club on Friday or Saturday, it was loaded full of mostly.
But is adultery not like insanely frowned upon in the military?
It's a fact of life is what it is.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it is. Now, what's really frowned upon is fraternization, okay? Now, it's a total different story. Say, like if I was an officer and I was fooling around with an enlisted person or an enlisted person's wife or husband or whatever the case is, that's called fraternization. That is severely frowned upon.
When it's fraternization, when it's it's within the service.
Well, it's fraternization when you're fooling around.
When you're working with them, basically.
No, when you're fooling around with a lower ranking person or their spouse or what have you.
Okay.
And that is a very serious thing. That is very, very serious. But if you're like an E3 and you messing around with another E3's wife, you know, they can, back then, they could, I don't know how it is now.
Right.
I don't know how serious it is. Back then, basically the command, your chain of command basically stayed out of your personal affairs. And, but now if it was like, a higher ranking person having an affair with a lower ranking person or lower ranking person's spouse or whatever, then it was very serious, very serious. And now it's even more serious.
Right.
I think the worst example of that I've kind of seen in recent years was a guy that he was a first class petty officer, and he was up for sailor. He was up for Atlantic Fleet's Sailor of the Year. Okay, that's an extremely rare and high accomplishment. Okay, extremely, because this guy, out of thousands and thousands of sailors, was being nominated for Atlantic Fleet's Sailor of the Year. I've never knew anybody that was even nominated for Sailor of the Quarter.
Wow.
Okay, so this was an extremely rare and high accomplishment. But on one night of liberty, he has consensual sex with a lower ranking female. Consensual. Wrong person finds out about it, or the right person finds out about it, depending on how you look at it. And this guy is severely sanctioned, and he's told that he will not be promoted within the next X amount of years. And in the Navy, you have to be promoted at certain time lengths. In other words, they were capping his military career, destroying it. He was done. And,
wow.
And the girl involved got some minor punishment, but was able to continue on her naval.
So you're not supposed to shack up with somebody that's above you or below you.
Right, right.
Wow.
And it's very serious. Now, mind you, at the time I was in, women could not be in combatant roles. Now they can be.
Yeah.
So when we went on the aircraft carriers, we did not have women there.
There wasn't a single woman out on that.
No.
But for months at a
No,
time.
but let me back up now. We wasn't gone for out to sea for months at a time. We would go on a 6-month deployment, and we would go out to sea for maybe a few weeks at a time. But we did a lot of port calls, especially on my first deployment, because at that time, when you're not in time of war, one of the major things for the Navy is to be a show of power. They cannot be a show of power and be out in the middle of the ocean all the time. So we took a lot. That was the thing. We did a lot of port calls, a lot. And now we did around the Horn, around the southern tip of South America. When we went up to Philadelphia, we rode the Independence out of dry dock, and then it was going to be stationed out to San Diego. I think, San Diego. So we had to go down around the Horn of South America. At that time, they didn't want to go through the Panama Canal.
Why not?
So I don't think the Panama Canal could take it at that time.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure. But, man, and we hit port calls, but that long trip, we hit St. Thomas, Virgin Isles, okay? That was the last port we got until we went down around the Horn. No, was it St. Thomas? I think it was, or Rio. I can't remember. We hit St. Thomas and Rio or whatever. But as we made that transition around the Cape Horn there,
Yeah.
we was out for 30-something days. And that gets bad. That gets tedious badly because people become short-tempered. You know, we working 12 on, 12 off. And when we hit down around the Horn, it's the ocean in that area is extremely violent, and so the carrier is like this.
The aircraft carrier.
Yeah,
And it's huge.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like almost like a little mini city. This aircraft carrier.
Yeah, I mean it's the flight deck is 4 acres, so the size of my yard. My yard is a good reference as far as flight deck. If you were standing at the very back of my property line looking toward the road, the width and lengthwise, my yard.
But then you had all kinds of floors and rooms and all that stuff.
Yeah, going down levels, and then in the island you went up levels. But no ship is big enough when you're stuck on there for a long period of time. And at 30 days, we was like, geez, man, this is, I mean, fights break out.
Over what?
Any little thing. I mean, whereas people were being polite, before, when there's plenty of ports call, go by somebody in the hallway or in the hangar bay or something other, you accidentally bump into, excuse me, brother, excuse me. And then after about 30 days where you're out, you bump into the same people and they're ready to just turn around and start swinging.
Wow.
It gets very, let's say it gets very intense, and it gets people are just nerves are on edge. But the command, they would do stuff like we had still beach parties, where they would just stop operations, and the galley guys would come out there, and we have big cookouts and all kinds of stuff on the flight day. They would do all this stuff to kind of just keep morale up, And but I can only imagine, there are guys that during war times, they're out there for 90-day stretches and even longer.
Just out in
the ocean, working 12 on, 12 off. For the Airedales, that's what we did.
I used to eat crab food.
Yeah, some of the some of the ship's company, some of the boiler techs, they was working 8 hours on and 8 hours off, and that would so much suck. But anything else you want to talk about?
Not particularly. Not that immediately comes to mind. I mean, it's easy to talk about politics all day, but as for what I am, like I reject the, like I support our gun rights, so I guess that makes me a conservative, but I'm also not against our gay friends, and I'm for weed legalization, so that's supposed to make me a liberal. So you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the shooting that just happened in Minneapolis has me concerned for two reasons, and there's two things that I think it has two major implications. They're going to continue, and this is why I'm not afraid to start maybe suggesting, false flag, but they kind of use every time there's a school shooting, it almost seems like the gun control thing becomes more,
before the smoke clears, the gun control thing
more and more justified. I mean, how could you guys not think about the kids and all that stuff? So they're going to use that to continue to go after gun rights, but then because of these trans on Christian victims, like this one in Minneapolis, like the one in Nashville, I think they're going to use that to continue to fuel that culture war fire against that community.
Well, unlike a lot of these other shootings that's happened,
yeah,
the manifesto that the young man put out can easily be read online. There's actually a video of him flipping through it. You can actually watch the video.
But
pause
oddly
it,
enough,
and read.
the Nashville manifesto, they were kind of trying to keep that tucked away. They didn't want you to see that. So there's been a bunch of different shootings where they don't want you to see the manifesto, and that makes no sense.
Right,
to me.
and people are pointing out, well, this guy was trans, and they was trans, and this was trans, and this trans. Yeah. And I don't think that's fair to the trans community to do such a thing. Although I personally believe that trans is a mental issue.
Okay. Yeah.
But for people to say, trans has a problem with shootings because all these jokers were trans. Well. Right. The Sandy Hook shooter was autistic. I have an autistic son. And I mean, you can't blame.
For a long time, they were telling us that the shooters are straight white incel loners, basically.
Right.
And that was the blanket category of a school shooter.
Right.
So now the media is trying to kind of scramble.
Now it's just young white men.
Right. Well, they're kind of scrambling to create a new narrative because the face of the shooter is changing. So the face of the mass shooter.
That's an absolutely good way to put that.
Right.
Very good way. So. For the next time we talk, let me. I'm just going to probe you here just for a minute, okay? Just to see where your beliefs are.
Yeah.
And so I've done this before, right?
Okay.
So you believe in gun rights?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm. See, this is getting into the realistic thing, but I want to say absolute because people say, "Oh, you think that private citizens should be able to own rocket launchers?" Yes, but that's not practical or realistic.
No.
But I don't think the government has any, and people disagree because of authority and stuff, but I don't think that the government or anybody in the government is in a position over me where they can say that they can have that and I can't.
Right. And I've heard when Joe Biden says you couldn't own a cannon when they wrote the Bill of Rights.
Right.
You absolutely could.
Right.
That's absolutely incorrect. Yeah. You absolutely could.
And I'll say this a lot when talking about politics. I will always believe in the very simple principle of if you give the government an inch, it will always take a mile.
Right.
And yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that you cannot own a fully automatic rifle. No. You cannot own it
unless it's pre that ban.
Well, you can own it if you have the right certification for it, but it's very rigorous. It takes a while. You have to go through the ATF.
And I think that laws like that are a complete infringement. I do. I think,
really?
Yeah, I do. Just every little law that comes out, the bump stock thing, whatever it is slowly chipping away at. Canada. Right. Canada did away with handguns completely.
Well, where a fully automatic rifle is not banned, but you have to have the right certifications to own a fully automatic rifle. There is a force reset trigger, and you saw that video of me shooting a force reset trigger. It's not a whole lot of difference between that and a fully automatic weapon.
Right.
But in reality, it is a semi-automatic with the force reset trigger, because it's actually one trigger pull, one round. One trigger pull, one round. It just does it very quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
But I certainly do believe in gun rights to the absolute maximum, and no amount of mass shootings will justify
taking your
no amount of mass shootings, no amount of gun violence will ever justify it.
Right. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Right.
That's but
I mean, but it is a simple fact with countries that do have strict gun control, there is less mass shootings. I mean, that's just fact. I mean,
let's look at what happens in these shootings. The last one was in a city where strict gun control laws.
And there are only 3 countries where the right to bear arms are enshrined in the Constitution, and that's the U.S., Mexico, and Guatemala. And I think that American right is so sacred that we just can't do away with it.
Our country was founded on violence.
Yes.
And we didn't steal land.
Yeah.
We conquered at some points, but for the most part, we bought.
Yeah, but the tribes also stole from other tribes too, and
and that's something we can get in. But I want to probe you for a second.
Yeah.
To see what. So you believe in the right to bear arms, okay?
Yes.
I already know the answer to this question, but this is for the audience. Abortion.
Okay.
Just yes or no?
Morally no. Morally no. Legally yes, because it goes back to the principle of if you give the government an inch, they will take a mile, and they've taken abortion, and they're already talking about going after contraceptives. There's Republican legislators that are going after Plan B. So if it's morally wrong completely, and there's also the hole in the dilemma of, the exceptions for rape and incest. So if it's murder in all cases, but rape and incest, it's equally unjustified in those cases as well. So I think that's these. So if it's wrong in the 99% of cases, but it's justified in the 1% of cases, even though it's still equally wrong in the 1% of cases. So I think that's
morally it is equally wrong. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Morally and for religious reasons,
right? And that's the hole in the dilemma. And it's not religious reasons for me, because we can call abortion what it is. It's
right.
Yeah.
It's unaliving an unborn baby.
Yeah, and that's what it is, and you can just say that, and you can debate about.
We'll say it that way for Bluetooth purposes.
All right. Well, you can debate about when life begins, if it begins at conception, if it begins at heartbeat, if it begins at viability, which is when it's viable outside of the womb. Mm-hmm. So, abortion, simple yes or no? It's not a simple yes or no question for me, because we do not have a government that we can trust to regulate abortion for us in a way that it will not continue to impede on our rights.
Okay.
So like I said, I think if we let the government have abortion, they're going to start looking at the next thing after that.
Freedom of speech.
What about it?
How do you believe?
Absolute freedom of speech. I mean, you can't. I think that people have a right to say whatever they want. I mean, even like we were talking earlier about Alex Jones, I think it's an absurd disgrace to the freedom of speech that they allowed him to be sued like that for suggesting that
if somebody walks into a crowded movie theater and yells fire,
is that freedom of speech?
Is that freedom of speech? Just hold it. We'll talk about that one the next time. I'm just kind of probing you because I think you're more along a libertarian. Now, don't
Right, but libertarians also have this kind of weird obsession with capitalism and business, which I don't have. I think that
Okay.
well, I'm not a communist, but corporations have just as much of the tendency to be evil as the government. So the government that the big government, big brother thing that libertarians rage against, I think that the corporations that they also kind of worship have the same capability of being corrupt and evil. So I think when I see this libertarian party in the U.S. with the hedgehog thing, I often think that libertarians want to hand over the keys of tyranny from the government to the corporations.
Okay, write that down as a subject of our next conversation.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of probe you on some of those things and kind of see where you're at on it.
Right.
And that'll be something we can discuss.
I mean, as for free speech, I mean, there's kind of a war against free speech, and I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit too. The Georgia mask ban. So, like, if you remember during COVID, when I went and met Jeff Duncan, they were debating this is in reference to COVID masks in school. So then they were kind of wanting everybody to wear masks or maybe not wear masks. And it's kind of ironic to see years later, it's actually a misdemeanor in Georgia and gives officers the authority and the ability to approach you if you have a mask covering on in public that conceals your identity. And the only real way to get around that is a surgical COVID mask. That's the only way to get around it.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stuff is completely against protest laws, and they're laws that are completely designed to be against protesting and discourage protesting.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I say that once the pandemic was over, see that was where we got into grounds that we'd never been to before.
Right.
And so once the pandemic that was over, I think pretty much the view of everybody was there's no reason to have these mask mandates. So
Right.
there's no reason for people to be wearing a mask
Right.
outside. And but the other side of that conversation is, well, it's my body. I'll do whatever I want to.
Right.
If I don't feel safe in this crowd, I can put a mask on. So we created a dilemma. So now, if a robber wants to go in a store and rob a store to hide his identity,
He's got to wear a surgical mask.
Mask.
Right.
There's nobody going to really look twice at him now because of that.
And maybe it's too juicy of a topic to talk about now, or not wait until the next thing. But American flag burning, I don't think American flag burning should be illegal at all. I don't. It's a slippery slope, but
it's not illegal.
No, but there is the executive order that Trump signed that a dude got arrested under.
Right. Well, they can arrest him under whatever. Trump's executive order does not supersede the Supreme Court, and
Right.
the Supreme Court's already ruled on that multiple
but
times.
that order, I feel like, was written to intentionally challenge that Supreme Court decision.
Of course it was.
Right.
Yeah, but that the Supreme Court has not even heard that. There's not even a date for the Supreme Court to even hear that if they decide to do it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think the Supreme Court will even hear it because they've ruled on this multiple times, and each time Supreme Court said it is a freedom of speech to be able to burn the flag. Personally, I think it's deplorable that somebody does that.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's absolutely deplorable, but I will fight for their right to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's just the way it is. But man, we're going to wrap it up.
All right.
It's getting a little late here. Ethan, it's been fantastic talking to you, and we're going to do this again here.
We should. Yeah.
So, guys, thank you for watching our video. I remind everybody to hit that like button. Leave us a comment, and maybe next time we'll do it live.
Well, it took the whole show for us to start coming up with a little bit more juicy topics.
Yeah, and hit that bell button so you're notified each and every time I load up a new video. Until next time, love you guys. We'll see you. Bye.